The global market for monoethanolamine, or MEA, is on track to double over the next decade, soaring well past the billion-dollar mark. We're seeing intense, scaling demand from major infrastructural sectors, facilities pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, massive agricultural operations, and the global production lines churning out industrial detergents all run on MEA. But the macro forces holding these supply chains together are fracturing. Punitive tariffs, regional conflicts, and sudden shortages routinely shatter global trade routes originating in Asia. For companies importing these chemicals, this volatility destroys predictability. When you can't forecast your cost of goods sold, pricing your own final product becomes a guessing game. Securing an MEA supply now acts as a high-stakes corporate risk management obligation. Historically, importers have leaned heavily on chemical traders. It is a model built entirely on the transactional convenience of moving materials across borders. The core mechanic of a traditional trader is simple. Scour the global spot market for the absolute cheapest batches, very often out of China, and sell them to the buyer with zero visibility into the actual factory of origin. That lack of visibility becomes a massive liability the moment sweeping import tariffs on Chinese chemicals are enacted by the U.S. government. Because traders operate as middlemen, they don't absorb those financial penalties. They pass every compounding markup, tariff, and shipping premium directly down to the buyer. This leaves procurement officers with a difficult choice. Do the historical conveniences of buying spot volume outweigh the compounding risks of operating in a tariff-heavy, highly volatile market? The primary alternative to that trader model is working directly with a contract manufacturer, like NavXport. Let's track an MEA molecule. On the left, the trader path hits multiple intermediary modes and border barriers, causing unavoidable import tariffs and price spikes. On the right, NavXport's direct supply chain bypasses those punitive Chinese tariffs entirely. To secure that locked-in, tariff-free pricing, buyers do have to make an operational trade-off. Contract manufacturing mandates deep strategic alignment and upfront volume forecasting. You lose the ability to call up a supplier and grab a quick, cheap batch on a whim. You are explicitly trading short-term purchasing flexibility for long-term forecasting security and tight margin protection. Beyond pricing, there are strict operational realities to consider. Sourcing chemicals while blind to their origin introduces significant physical risks. To fill a massive spot order, a trader will often mix MEA batches together from multiple undisclosed global factories. If you are using MEA for highly sensitive applications, like pharmaceutical pH regulation or amine functionalized solid sorbents or direct air capture, a mixed batch with varying impurity profiles is catastrophic. NavXport's contract manufacturing model is engineered specifically to eliminate that chaos, focusing entirely on high-precision grades. The buyer maintains unyielding control over the exact formulation, dictating strict purity levels and locking in custom MEA or MDEA blends. When batch-to-batch consistency dictates whether an entire product line survives or fails, direct manufacturing control is a mandatory infrastructure requirement. The ultimate stress test for any MEA buyer is a global geopolitical shock that halts raw feedstock availability entirely. Look at the disruption of petrochemical feedstocks caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It proves exactly how fast a stable global supply can evaporate. During a shock like that, the behavioral economics of a trader are completely predictable. They will always protect their own margins by diverting whatever limited volume they have to their massive, highest-bidding Tier 1 clients. If you are a mid-sized importer relying on the spot market, you will be left completely stranded without raw materials, watching your competitors continue production while your lines sit idle. A contract manufacturer operates on dedicated infrastructure. NavXport's strategic regional sourcing avoids those specific geopolitical shockwaves and contractually guarantees volume to their aligned partners. The minimal overhead you might save by using a trader during a strong economy is the exact capital that funds the risk of a total factory shutdown during a global supply crunch. To determine which model fits your business, we can look at this quadrant chart. On the horizontal axis, we have your tolerance for price and quality variance. On the vertical axis, your volume scale and predictability. Some businesses belong firmly in the bottom right quadrant. For them, sticking with traders makes logistical sense. This group includes opportunistic spot buyers who need standard industrial-grade MEA for generalized tasks and whose monthly volumes fluctuate wildly. However, if your operation requires strict consistency, you must transition to the top left quadrant and partner with a contract manufacturer like NavXport. This applies to companies scaling carbon capture technologies, manufacturing pharma-grade products, or running massive detergent supply chains. In these sectors, variance destroys quarterly projections. The upfront logistical effort required to audit and align with NavXport builds a structural defense for your company. This strategic shift creates long-term stability that a simple transaction cannot provide. In the highly volatile markets of the 2020s, relying entirely on the transactional ease of a trader is a systemic risk. Building strategic manufacturing partnerships is the only viable path to protect your margins and your future.